Welcome back to the course Computer Programming for EOR. In this lecture, I will introduce you to the basics of object-oriented programming. After this lecture, you can describe what a class is, you can use a class, you can create a class, and you can explain when to create a class. Let me remind you about an example we have seen before to ensure that you get this lecture. We have three roles involved in this example: user front-end programmer called the American, and the backend programmer called the Dutch. The user provides inputs and would like to see the desired output. Here, the user provides two fractions, 3/4 and 7/4, and she wants to see the output, that is 5/2. The user runs main.py written by the American programmer or the front-end programmer. The American programmer gets the four inputs, calculates the result numerator, that is 40, and the denominator, that is 16. However, the American does not know how to simplify this fraction, that is 40/16. Therefore, he uses the simplify function written by the Dutch. The Dutch emails mdlfraction.py to the American, who has to import the fraction from the file and use it to simplify the fraction and print it. Before learning about object-oriented programming, you need to know what a class is, what an object is in the real world, when we use them in English language. A class is like a blueprint that is used to build a house. It's like a map that you create before, you know, uh, start building a house. That blueprint can be used to create many houses, many instances of that blueprint. So the difference between a class and an object is that a class is like a blueprint, it's like a map that shows you what should be inside a house. The object is the reality, is what you can touch, and what what is an instance of a class. Here you see that the blueprint is used to create three instances, three objects of this class: red, green, and blue. Now we can start learning about object-oriented programming. You need to know that everything in Python is an object. That means it's an instance of a class in Python. Even the integer values such as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are instances of the class int. If, for example, you try to run the Python code you see here, you would see that we set I to 2, and then we try to print the type ID of I and the I itself. You see that the output looks like below. The type of the integer value 2 is a class, and the name of that class is int. And this too has a unique ID in Python that if I try to print it again, same value is going to be printed as for ID. And then if we try to print I, the value of I is going to be printed. So an integer class is a combination of at least three related values, three related attributes: type, ID, and value, which we usually show that using a UML, a unified modeling language, way of showing a class. So we have a class, it has a name, it's called int, and it has three attributes: type, ID, and value. And these three values are bundled to one another. Let's see another example to learn more about objects in Python. Here we have two codes which provides the same output 5 if you try to run them. The first code is very simple. You use the previous I and you add 3 to that, and you try to set j with the value of that expression. So that's simply I is 2, therefore j is going to be 5, and 5 is going to be printed. The second code is exactly the same, provides the same output. However, here I try to show you what happens behind the scene when you use the plus operator, or you try to just print, a value. When you try to use the plus operator, in reality, behind the scene, Python calls a function for I. It's as if the plus operator is replaced with dot donder add. Donder means to underscore before and after, a method name. So donder add is executed, and it's given a value, an argument 3, and that donder add, that function calculates the result and set j with that value, which is 5. When you try to print j, in reality, j.donderstr is called, which turn the value, in the integer value of 5 to a string 5 to be printed by the print function. So operator plus is in fact a function of the class int, and it's called donderadd. I plus 3 is in fact I dot donderadd 3, that returns a new integer that will be uh, j. And print j is in fact print j dot donder str. So you can see here that the int class bundles relevant variables and methods together. So we have attributes such as type, ID, and value that were bundled, but we also have some methods that work on those attributes, that use those attributes and return a value. In this case, you see that the donder add gets an argument from you know uh, an argument such as 3. It already has the value that is 2, and then it combines them, it adds them, and returns a new value. Donder_str does not require an argument, but it uses the value, that the attribute value, and it turns that value to a string, and it returns that to the print function. So a class in Python, an object in Python, is a bundle of relevant variables and methods. In the next video, I will explain how you can create and use a user-defined class.